also wanted to point out, Evan, there may be a Bible narrative with Courtland Sutton and Russ. We know Russ, one of the most religious guys in the league, right there with Carson Wentz, who we'll talk about in a second here. Courtland Sutton also, if you check his Twitter profile, has some very Bible-ish quotes in there as well. Just want to put that out there. Hello, and welcome to episode 351 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm one of the co-founders here at ETR. And the NFL hot stove, it is absolutely piping hot. A flurry of big moves just prior to free agency, which will kick off next week. We typically don't record on Fridays, but so much has happened. Evan said we got to get on and fire off some takes. Evan, happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday. The new league year is usually when all the stuff comes down, but it was almost like a domino effect. Aaron Rodgers stays in Green Bay. That leads to other trades of quarterbacks, and so things kind of got started before they usually would. It usually begins at the start of the new league year, which is next week. But we got a bunch of news. We got to talk about it. We got fallout after the combine. We took a bunch of draft props today. We got a lot of stuff to get to.
NFL has just done such an incredible job of making it so that there literally is no offseason. Like, we literally just got done, I feel like, with Super Bowl stuff and everything, and now it's just like we're full blast again. As Evan noted, on today's show, we're going to go through the big transactions of the last 3 to 4 days, talk a little bit about the fantasy fallout, anything else going on. Before we get into today's show, I want to remind everyone of the absurd deal we have with BetMGM right now. I've talked about a couple times before how this insane, cutthroat, race to the bottom battle between books for customer acquisition. It's brutal for them. It's amazing for bettors. An example is the deal we have with BetMGM. Use our link to sign up for BetMGM, make a $10 bet, and they will send you a coupon for $85 off any ETR product on top of $1,000 in free bets. That coupon, that $85 ETR coupon, is good for 1 year. Head to the betting tab on the Sportsbook bonus offers page on our site for the link and the details. All right. As Evan said, the first domino was Aaron Rodgers back to Green Bay. I think this was as expected. It got as high as minus 350 a few days before that he was going back to Green Bay. I think the Tom Clements thing was really what sealed it for me. It was like, well, I mean, this dude's not coming back. He's like 100 years old. He's not coming back to coach Jordan Love. He's coming back to coach Aaron Rodgers. And so he gets Tom Clements back. 4 years, $200 million is the report. That has not been verified yet. Obviously, money is kind of irrelevant when you're talking about Aaron Rodgers because without him, they are just drawing stone dead. What do you think about Aaron Rodgers coming back? And coupled with that, as expected, Davante Adams was hit with the franchise tag.
Yeah, so they're running it back, and they should. The NFC is in a weak state right now, and they really are probably the best team top to bottom in the NFC. And so it makes all the sense in the world for it. We talked about it on the last show that it was likely that Aaron Rodgers was going to return to Green Bay. There was a small chance that he might go to Denver. Denver really tried to set it up. They brought in his former OC and Nathaniel Hackett to be their head coach. They brought in other guys from the Green Bay staff, but ultimately the Packers were like, no, we're going to make Aaron happy. We're going to make him the richest player in the history of the NFL, and we're going to franchise tag his boy Davante Adams. And, we're going to bring back Aaron Jones. We got A.J. Dillon. We're going to hope that David Bakhtiari can get healthy. And we've got a lot of talent on defense. And, I think top to bottom, they're probably the best team in the NFC as it stands today.
I'm curious what you think of Aaron Rodgers from a fantasy perspective, and we'll have a ton of time to get into this, but Aaron Rodgers is 38 years old now. I mean, insane efficiency last season when he was the NFL's MVP, 37 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I would say that's unsustainable, but he has this absurd touchdown efficiency and TD INT rate like almost every year. His TD rate last year was only 7%. It's high, but his career rate is 6.3. It wasn't that high. Now, all that said, when you don't run, like Aaron Rodgers doesn't run, it's hard to really blow it up. He was 8th in fantasy points per game last year, was Aaron Rodgers, behind Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Tom Brady, Kyler, Mahomes, Hurts, and Lamar. Of course, these guys like Lamar, Hurts, Kyler, Allen, it's going to be hard for Rodgers to get ahead of these guys, I think, unless he just goes completely nuke like Brady did. But Green Bay's throw rate over expectation is not high enough. Like Bucks were like led the entire league in throw rate over expectation. That's not how the Packers play. So my initial thought is I'll probably be out on Rodgers, assuming he's going in like the 6th or 7th round or something like that. But we'll see. What are your thoughts on Rodgers, Adams, everything fantasy related for the Packers?
Yeah, he's, a guy that I view as he's going to be somewhere around like quarterback 10, I think, from a season-long perspective. But each and every week, we're going to look at the matchups that, in which he's playing, and we're going to think about stacking Aaron Rodgers with Devontae Adams every week because there's just such a great history, a great rapport there, and they can have those blow-up games. So he's someone that I'm looking at every week in DFS, but I'm not going out of my way to draft in year long.
Yeah, I was just checking to see where he's been going right now. Yeah, his ADP right now is QB9 on Underdog. And by the way, our Underdog rankings are up for free right now. Our best ball rankings are up for free right now. Again, Rodgers is QB9, just behind guys like Dak Prescott, Kyler, guys like that. All right. The domino of that, Evan mentioned Denver looked like they were selling out to get Aaron Rodgers. They don't get him, but then they rock the world with this Russell Wilson trade. Man, I mean, first of all, Denver gave up a lot, okay? So I don't want to say it's like an absolute slam dunk. They gave up Drew Lock, Noah Fant, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a 5th-round pick. If I'm Seattle, like these teams have been scraping for like 20 years to find a good quarterback. You have one, and then you give him up. I just don't love what it is for Seattle. I get they had a really bad year. I personally would have tried to work it out with Russ Wilson and not been such a harder about running the ball so much and pissing him off like they did. But I don't know. What was your initial reaction? Because this one, I don't want to say out of left field, but it was surprising to me that Seattle actually did make a move and get rid of Russ Wilson.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, there's this notion that Russell Wilson is washed. He really played poorly for a long stretch last year, but he came back. He finished strong. You remember what was the stack that won the Millie Maker late with Russ in it? No one was playing. I think it was against Detroit, I want to say.
Yeah,
he lit
exactly.
It up. Yeah. It might have even been a double stack with Lockett and Metcalf. I can't remember. But I know that Russell Wilson was the quarterback in that lineup. I think Osimo won it, actually. And so, I mean, he showed that he could still play at a high level. He was battling that finger injury. Never really revealed the full extent of that injury. But I think it clearly had an impact on his game. I would also say that he's not quite as dynamic an athlete now as he was earlier in his career. He's not as much of a scrambling threat. It's still there, but it's not like it used to be. And so I think that he has lost a little bit of that off of his game, but I think he can still play at a really high level. And they have pieces in Denver. I think the offensive line is good enough. And then you've got, all this young talent at receiver. Alberto is going to be everybody, people are going to be rushing to draft Alberto. I'm sure that's already started in the underdog drafts. I mean, people are really excited about it, as they should be. And it's an awesome move for Denver. Denver's got a top 10 defense. And now I think that they can have a top 10 offense to complement it. Denver, this division though is so loaded, right? This AFC West right now. Even the Raiders are a competent team, but the Chargers, I think at 20-1 right now, they're probably one of my favorite Super Bowl bets. You got the Chiefs; they're going to be in it every year, and now Denver finally has a quarterback. This is a loaded division.
And that's the thing. I mean, I understand you have to go for it if you're the Broncos. I also would have made this trade if I was the Broncos, but man, it's hard for me to see the Broncos winning 11, 12, 13 games when you play Mahomes twice, when you play Justin Herbert twice. The Raiders games are not going to be gimmies whatsoever. And I agree on Russ. I mean, people I think are too quick to write off Russ. Last year, he didn't play well. He's still at 7.8 yards per attempt. Yeah, I mean, give this guy a chance to throw the ball more. Everybody knows that the worst run offense in the entire NFL from a play calling perspective for the last few years has been Seattle. I'm curious what you think on Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. I don't want to get too high on Jerry Jeudy because maybe I was too high on him last year, but he did look really good in week 1. He has the high ankle sprain. Now Noah Fant is gone. He gets the QB upgrade. I get that Cortland Sutton's there, that Albert O is there, that Hamler, and they have, and Tim Patrick, they have a lot to chew on. But man, I could see Russ and Jeudy doing good things. I also wanted to point out, Evan, there may be a Bible narrative with Cortland Sutton and Russ. We know Russ, one of the most religious guys in the league, right there with Carson Wentz, who we'll talk about in a second here. Cortland Sutton also, if you check his Twitter profile, has some very Bible-ish quotes in there as well. Just want to put that out there. But what do you think about Jeudy and Sutton with Russ?
Well, Sutton is the big, contested catch target. And I think that Russ will definitely be willing to throw him the ball downfield. I think he's going to make big plays. Russell Wilson has always been one of the best downfield throwers in the league since he entered the league. And then Jerry Jeudy is going to be the separation receiver. He suffered a high ankle sprain. How many times have we discussed how this is just a killer injury for wide receivers, just will absolutely ruin your season? He comes back. He's clearly not the same. He's playing in a dysfunctional offense. He upset enough people, I think, fantasy players, then maybe we'll be able to get a little bit of a discount on him, at least for part of the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
I expect to be high on him.
Yeah.
I really do. I believe in him as a player for sure. And I can confidently, I think, with a level of confidence, chalk up what happened to him last year to the injury and the offense.
Yeah, current ADP, and this doesn't have the full trade baked in, but current ADP on Jerry Jeudy is around 77th overall. I'd be willing to take him in the 50s for sure right now. Albert O, as Evan mentioned, 2020 fourth rounder, 6'5", 258, ran a 4.49, and that was before everybody started running sub 4.4 on that track. I mean, Albert O is the kind of guy that really makes a move, and with Noah Fant gone, obviously he's going to be, yeah. I know, I'm interrupting the video. Wah. But if you're enjoying this video and want to see more fantasy football and DFS content like it, please just take 2 seconds, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button. Really does go a long way for us, and we'd appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and now back to the show. The other side of this, Evan.
He's got to be popping in some of your models.
Oh, baby. The other side of this is what's Seattle thinking? Completely blow it up? Give up your franchise quarterback with what seems like no plan? I don't know. Do you have any read on what you think Seattle's plan is going forward?
Well, Daniel Jeremiah, who is probably the most plugged in member of the media beyond Schefter, maybe even more plugged in than Schefter, especially when it comes to the draft.
Yep.
Dropped a podcast with Bucky Brooks yesterday. We're recording this on Friday. Last night, I think it came down Thursday night. And man, he went on and he's a very level-headed and measured guy. What he was saying about everybody that I talk to is what he's saying. Everybody that I talk to in the league thinks that Deshaun Watson is going to end up with the Seahawks. Everyone. And I mean, he was adamant about it. And he's not a guy, he never speaks in hyperbole or exaggeration. I mean, he speaks, very, very measured. And he said it repeatedly, just everybody. And I was stunned at how adamant that he was about this, because, we don't even know the outcome of all the stuff that's surrounding Deshaun Watson. So for him to say that, it's the Seahawks already know that Deshaun Watson is going to be cleared or something. There's a lot. I mean, they're going to turn around and use some of the stuff that they just got for Russell Wilson to trade for Deshaun Watson is what it sounds like people expect to happen. Now, sometimes things happen that don't happen that people expect to happen, But in this instant, I was like, wow, him saying that I bet Deshaun Watson 7-1 to take the first snap for the Seahawks. It immediately went down I put in the Discord. It immediately went down to 3-1, and I certainly wouldn't bet it right now. But those were strong words from Daniel Jeremiah.
So today, Friday, Deshaun Watson was scheduled to appear in front of a grand jury in which we'd finally get some clarity, I think, on the legal situation. I haven't seen the results of that yet. My take all along was that the Panthers were going to go hard after Deshaun Watson. It's just crazy, man. Like, I could see anything from like actual jail, which obviously would surprise me, to like starting for the Panthers in week 1. Seahawks doesn't sound crazy either. I'm curious who you like just better real life. Forget about fantasy. Who do you think is better right now, Deshaun Watson in real life or Russell Wilson in real life?
That's a good question. I would go with Deshaun Watson. He's just so much younger, and he's so much more of a running threat. Yeah, and he's aggressive. He's a player that can at times, I think, frustrate his coaches because he works out of the structure of the offense so much. And sometimes he can even make his offensive line look worse than it is because he holds on to the ball. Really, he takes a lot of sacks, But, man, he is a playmaker. He's so aggressive throwing the ball downfield, and he's so electrifying with his legs. I would say that I definitely think Deshaun Watson is better than Russell Wilson right now.
Yeah, I would take Deshaun Watson also. You could make a case that Deshaun Watson is ascending. I think there's a pretty good case to be made that that Russell Wilson has peaked, and his body has been banged up, man. He's played through a lot. I mean, Russell Wilson doesn't miss games, but that doesn't mean he's been completely healthy this whole time. He's been banged up for sure, and I think you see it in some of his rushing efficiency metrics. All right. Other quarterback dominant to fall. Carson Wentz is a Commander. Essentially, the Commanders give up 2 third-round picks for the right to get Carson Wentz. And you can make a case, man, that Carson Wentz was like the absolute worst quarterback in the league in 2020. Last year, I thought he was better. Certainly was not good. I mean, yards per attempt last 3 seasons for Carson Wentz, 6.7, 6.0, 6.9. For reference, Taylor Heinicke was at 6.9 last year. I do think Carson Wentz can throw a better deep ball than Heinicke, which I guess is good for Terry McLaurin. I think Carson Wentz can get locked onto one guy, which probably is good for Terry McLaurin. But what do you think about Carson Wentz now with this Washington team?
Yeah, they kind of fell into a state of desperation a little bit. I think everybody was surprised that Indianapolis wound up getting any picks really at all for Carson Wentz. And now Washington has to pay like his $28 million salary. Yeah. I mean, Indianapolis did very good. That's Chris Ballard at the controls, and he's a smart guy. He hasn't been perfect, but he's been pretty good. And I think Indianapolis won this trade. I still think that the Washington football or the Commanders. I like football team better. I mean, I like WFT better than
I thought. Football team really grew on me. I actually thought football team was a good name, but now they made money from Redskins. Now they can make money from football team, and now they're making money from Commanders jerseys. But anyways.
Yeah, I still think that they should be in the market for a quarterback I think they have the number 11 pick.
Yep.
I don't know. They probably won't take a quarterback at 11, I suppose. But, I mean, Carson Wentz shouldn't be anyone's idea of the future. We've seen what he is. He had the one excellent season that was ended by the torn ACL. It was a super high variance outcome season because he was so good on third down. And PFF has shown that third down efficiency is not like translatable year to year. And every other season of his career, he's been like below average. So I think that was sort of an outlier year for him, and he's just not that good. And I mean, the Commanders should not be building their future around Carson Wentz. And I don't think that they will.
I mean, Carson Wentz, when he was in Philly before he tore the ACL, was like legit good. He tears the ACL, and he's been getting just worse and worse and worse and worse. It seems like every single year.
Yeah, and it also seems like he's not well liked in the locker room.
So many reports about that in both Philly and Indy. So many reports about that.
And here's some added context. Think about how much Philadelphia traded to go get him, and then they got rid of him. And then Frank Reich went out of his way to go, to bound the table for Carson Wentz, and then he got rid of him too. There's something really off here. Not just the on-field stuff. Yeah.
Frank Reich loved Carson Wentz. Like, they bonded over I know I joke a lot about the Bible stuff. They legit like bonded over the Bible stuff if you watch the Hard Knocks stuff. And I mean, for Frank Reich to dump him, I think speaks volumes for sure. This, of course, leaves the Colts without a quarterback now. The rumor is that they'll be going after Jimmy Garoppolo. Seems like a pretty interesting and fine fit to me. I think the way San Francisco played last year is similar to the way the Colts want to play. I don't know if this is going to happen or not. What do you think about the Colts quarterback situation?
Yeah, I just have no idea. They do not have a first round pick.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to get creative. I don't know. Everyone's assuming that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get moved, it seems. But, Schefter said late last month on a podcast that he didn't think it was a lock that Garoppolo was going to go. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That's something that still needs to play itself out.
Yeah, I assume the Colts have to have some kind of plan, just like Seattle. I mean, you can't just like dump your quarterback and not have a plan. Like, these franchises better have a plan. Like, they're worth billions of dollars. You know what I mean? Like, we're freaking ETR. We have a football blog and we have a plan. You know what I mean? If these guys don't have a plan, they're out of their mind. Yeah. Let's go to... Oh, I just wanted to note on this Christian McCaffrey thing. I know we touched on it before, but the report is that the Panthers want a first-round pick plus additional compensation for Christian McCaffrey. It's just, I'm really skeptical that it gets done. So I just wanted to put that out there. I think we're projecting Christian McCaffrey back to Carolina. Obviously, health and quarterback play is going to be a big issue there. Franchise tags. Mike Gesicki got one. Chris Godwin got one. I think there was some debate whether Chris Godwin would get one or not. Bucks end up going that route despite the injury. The Mike Gesicki one is like a no-brainer because he's a wide receiver. He had 705 snaps slaughter wide last year, 99 inline. He's a wide receiver, but you get to keep him at the tight end tag price, which is only $10.8 million. The wide receiver tag number is up around $19 million. So huge savings there on Mike Gesicki. Godwin's more expensive considering he's coming off the injury, but man, Godwin is so good. Any takes for you on Godwin and Gesicki tags?
The quarterback situation in Tampa Bay is very, very concerning for Chris Godwin. That's the recovery from the injury is the number one concern right now.
Both, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. We'll be talking about him, quite a bit and how the quarterback situation, because I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. It's tough. The drop off from Tom Brady to anybody really. Anybody that, within their range of guys that they could go get is just going to be massive in all likelihood. With Mike Gesicki, he has his flaws, he has his limitations, but he has been a productive, established veteran tight end / receiver. And no, he's not George Kittle. Mike McDaniel, of course, coming from San Francisco. So we can't be like, oh, well, Gesicki is going to be in the Kittle role. That he's nothing like that. But I think that Mike McDaniel is going to be smart enough to use Mike Gesicki in optimal ways to maximize his strengths, minimize his weaknesses, and get him the ball. He's also not a guy who's a playmaker after the catch, really. And that is historically the Shanahan, McDaniel, blueprint for guys that they want. That's why McDaniel's so hyped about Jalen Waddle, who's really good after the catch.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a tough fit on paper, but yeah, for that amount of money, you don't let like a young veteran, productive player, and he's still young, go.
Yeah. By the way, imagine George Kittle in the Mike Gesicki role. In other words, forget blocking. Let's just get George Kittle running routes out there the whole game. That would be exciting to me. Anyways, that's not happening. One that surprised me a little bit, I don't know. I guess it shouldn't, but Big Mike Williams back to the Chargers. They don't even let him hit free agency. They don't let him test the market. Mike Williams goes for 3 years, $60 million. Mike Williams came out on fire, playing awesome to start last year. 4 of the first 5 games, he had 7 or more catches. He looked like more than just a deep threat, but then he regressed, or they used him differently, and he went back to it. I thought Josh Palmer was awesome last year. I thought they would let Mike Williams walk, put Josh Palmer in there, but I get it. You have Justin Herbert. You want to throw the ball a ton. You need a lot of weapons. What do you think about Big Mike going back to the Chargers?
Yeah, early in the season, they built their passing game around him to a large extent. Yeah, and then he kind of tapered off. He was running lower percentage routes again. And then, he finished strong. He had a couple of 100-yard games over his last 5. I tend to believe, because if you look at Keenan Allen's age and if you look at his decline in yards per route run, which has been steady over the last 4 or 5 years, he's not the player that he used to be. So I think that this deal, what we saw, albeit in flashes from Mike Williams and how their OC, Joe Lombardi, used him, I think that they might go back to trying to build their passing offense more around Mike Williams, because they might see him as an ascending player, whereas I would say it's clear that Keenan Allen is a descending player.
Yeah, and I like Big Mike for sure. I think it's a very fair deal, $20 million a year over 3 for Big Mike. You know, I'm a Josh Palmer guy. I think Josh Palmer is really good, but I think there's going to be enough room for all of them, especially if, as Evan said, Keenan Allen is declining rapidly.
Yeah. You know, could Josh Palmer be the eventual replacement for Keenan Allen?
Yeah.
You remember there was a game, right, that Keenan Allen missed. I think Josh Palmer kind of surprised us by jumping and right into that role, and I think he had a big game.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's go to Calvin Ridley. So, you know, we spent a little bit of time last week. It was the initial off-the-cuff reaction. There's been some more details that have come out. You know, this whole, like, story is, like, tough to add up for me with him taking time off and everything. I just want to talk about it from a fantasy perspective for a second. These Falcons wide receivers, I mean, my God, I don't even know. Like, Russell Gage, I guess, is number 1. Zacchaeus, like, they have Pitts, but man, like, they have no one. And Matt Ryan, just like, I mean, it's almost over for Matt Ryan. He needs guys that can help him. So I'm just like so skeptical that this offense is going to be able to be successful. I'm sure they're going to be in the market for wide receivers in free agency, but it's tough. What do you think the Falcons are going to do at like weaponry? Like, they have like nothing beyond Kyle Pitts.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was doing, I'm going through doing depth charts right now. And I start with the Falcons like up top. And I'm like, this is all they have at receiver. I mean, even Russell Gage is a free agent. Even Zacchaeus, I think, is a restricted free agent. So, yeah, they got nothing. I mean, they should have gotten rid of Matt Ryan entering last year, blown it up with the new coaching staff, the new front office, rebuilt it, tried to rebuild from ground up. I mean, could they trade Matt Ryan? I think that could be an interesting option for a team like the Colts, who would obviously, without a first round pick, they'd have to really dig into their future picks. But I think that they could trade. I don't
think Matt Ryan's worth a first round pick, so maybe they can get him for less.
Yeah, maybe. But either way, like, yeah, I don't. They should have blown it up last year, man, and now they dug their hole deeper.
Yeah, I mean, they like half blew it up by getting rid of Julio. By the way, I saw Julio on the street. I was out in Nashville, and Julio comes walking by. I mean, this dude's calves and chest are just, I mean, this dude is a specimen. Oh, my God. Okay, we'll have an eye on that. But yeah, I think I wouldn't give up a first-round pick to have Matt Ryan, but it wouldn't shock me if some team did on like a one-year deal, I guess. I don't know. That wouldn't make a lot of sense. But speaking of giving up, the Bears look like they're going full rebuild under the new management. They give up Khalil Mack to the Chargers for a second-round pick and a sixth-round pick. Khalil Mack was 31 years old, just like a classic rebuild deal. Like, if the Bears ever get good, Khalil Mack is going to be too old when they're good anyways. Might as well get what you can for him now. That's kind of the way I saw this deal. Any thoughts for you on Khalil Mack to the Chargers?
Yeah, I think pretty good deal for the Bears, actually. I think this was a smart move because he was coming up with just a massive cap number, and and his contract was about to expire as well. So I mean, it wasn't palatable for the Bears to keep him. Now they're rebuilding with with a second year quarterback who is still like a little bit developmental, and that puts them in a tough spot, like burning years of his rookie deal. The Bears are just not in a good position organizationally. On offense, they have so much to do. I mean, they got to re-sign James Daniel. Their offensive line is not in a good position. Darnell Mooney is their number one receiver. It's like already been determined that Allen Robinson isn't coming back, which should surprise no one. They just traded their best defensive player. Like, they're going to be bad for a long time, but it could be fun for us in fantasy for Justin Fields. He's going to be playing from behind a lot.
Yep. Yeah, I just think if Justin Fields can make enough progress to the point where he's actually a franchise quarterback, like, that would be a win for the Bears. Obviously, they'd have to pay him a lot at that point, but yeah, is what it is. I mean, rebuild is a rebuild. You got to do deals like this Khalil Mack one that they just did. One other franchise tag note I want to make, just in the context of draft props, and we'll talk next week more about draft props, but the Jaguars made, I think, a somewhat surprising decision to put the franchise tag on Cam Robinson. Now, this Ikem Ekwonu 100-1 was out there for a while. He was out there at 7-1. We took it at 3.5-1 in him to go first. Now it looks really bad. And that's kind of what happens sometimes on these draft props. I think one thing that I think people should be aware of on draft props, and we didn't do a good job of this with the number 1 pick, but like when one player gets steam, like Ecom did, other guys become value. So I saw Hutchinson at 8-1. Like right after we bet the Ecom at 3.5-1, you could have gotten Hutchinson to go first at 8-1, and just like getting prices on like the guys that are, there's only like 3 guys that are like, that have a chance to go first. Getting the best price on all 3 of them, I think would have made a lot of sense. I didn't take the 8-1, and now Hutchinson is like minus 215 to go first because everybody assumes that the Jaguars are not taking a tackle. They're going to take a defensive lineman. So that was just a little rant on the props process and stuff like that. We'll have more on that next week. But any thoughts on that and the Cam Robinson news?
Yeah, I haven't bet anything concerning the number 1 overall pick because I don't think that first of all, the Jaguars need to trade out, as we talked about on the last show. Like it doesn't, adding one player, it doesn't, even at, an elite or a premium position like left tackle, like that's not going to get them where they need to go. Like they need more players. And so they need to do whatever it takes, even if it means taking a discount to trade out of that pick. I still think it could be Ekwonu. I think that the chances go down a little bit after they franchise tag Cam Robinson. Cam Robinson isn't very good. Yeah. So it was a surprise to me that they franchise tagged him for the second straight year, especially under a new, well, I guess it's not a first. Trent Balk is still there. But a new coaching staff determined that he was worthy of the franchise tag. They also may be just protecting themselves to some extent. They can rescind the franchise tag at any point. They could play him at left tackle. Evan Neal played some guard at Alabama. They could put Evan Neal at left guard and play Cam Robinson at left tackle. They could still take Ekwonu and, I don't know, maybe play him at right tackle. They're giving themselves options. So I don't think it's the worst decision in the world, but it did surprise me just because Cam Robinson isn't very good.
Your disdain for Trent Baalke still being called in charge in Jacksonville is amazing. That's an amazing.
It's fucking absurd.
Yeah, and my take is always like, if you don't need a quarterback and there's not a clear cut home run fist pump it in pick, I'm always trading back. Like I'm just always trading back, and I'm sure Trent Baalke, obviously a massive dolt. I'm sure he's going to be trying to trade back. One prop I wanted to put some context around, and we're going to talk more about props next week. One I wanted to put more context around because I think it's interesting because it's quarterbacks, and of course everybody's interested in quarterbacks. This morning we took how many quarterbacks will go in the first round over 3.5 at plus 182 on FanDuel. We released that on Instagram, and again, we're releasing these props for free this year. Be sure following us on Instagram, here on YouTube, Twitter, etc., so that you get these. But yeah, I think it's interesting because I'm always of the opinion that this quarterback class isn't good, but every team ends up talking themselves into quarterbacks before it's said and done. So I thought this one was interesting, especially at plus 182. But Evan could put more context around the actual guys that we're looking at. Why did you bet quarterbacks over 3.5 plus 182?
Yeah, and some smart people that I know had actually the previous day, and I know Amico was one of them. They had taken the under on 3.5
at plus 175 to be clear.
So you money. You could essentially bet both, right? At this point, and
if you bet the plus 175 yesterday and the plus 180 today, obviously, if you bet $100, you're locking yourself into a minimum $75 profit. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So and what you said about the quarterbacks getting steamed, it's already happening. Like Malik Willis, coming out of the college season, I think people were maybe projecting him to be like in the teens. Now you're already seeing buzz of him going number 2 to the Lions. I think Kenny Pickett could go top 10. I think he could go to Washington at 11. I know they just acquired Carson Wentz, but again, they should not view him as the future of the franchise. They only gave up 2 threes to get him, so they could still take a quarterback theoretically. But I think that Pickett could definitely go in the top 10. Matt Corral, he got hurt in their bowl game, Ole Miss's bowl game, and he did not work out at the combine. So he has not generated a lot of buzz but he absolutely has like first round tools. And I think it would be a surprise if he didn't go in the first round. So that's 3 right there. Okay. Desmond Ridder it sounds like he came out of the combine. He really impressed teams. People have been comparing him to Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota has not, been a success, but he was the number 2 overall pick in the draft. I think Desmond Ridder could be like a late 1. Maybe that a team trades back into getting the first round, so you get that 5th-year option on him. But he's got, pretty good, size. He won a ton of games at Cincinnati, and apparently he killed it in the interviews. And so I think that he's a candidate to go in the first round. So that would get us to 4. And then Sam Howell, he at least appears in some mock drafts. I probably have the least confidence of him going in the first round, but he appears in the first round of some mock drafts. So that gives us 5 legit candidates to go in the first round. And we just need to get to 4 to win this. So, and at plus money, I liked it. I took it. We took it. Did Taylor put it up on Instagram?
Instagram, that one went out on, yeah. And to be clear, I would not take this at plus 140 or plus 130. Plus 182 was the number. And like when you guys are thinking about props and betting in general, like being price sensitive is just so important. And again, plus 182 was the one that the straw that broke the camel's back for me, where I was like, yeah, this is definitely a bet at plus 182. By the way that you get these props is be sure you sign up for our email list. You can find it we have a program running called Gleam. Find it on our Twitter, but basically it just asks you to sign up for our email list, follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and you're good.
Yeah. Okay. And one more thing about the quarterbacks is that the league right now there's a little bit of a quarterback shortage.
Yep.
And so I think that bodes well for the quarterbacks going early. And as you say, teams talk themselves, they try to talk themselves out of, a linebacker, but they will try to talk themselves into a quarterback because they know the value of that position. They should. That's what they should be doing. And
exactly.
They do that. Right.
Hey, I wasn't trying to say it as a negative. As a positive, They should be trying to talk themselves into taking quarterbacks. There is nothing more valuable in sports than having a good quarterback on a rookie contract. Even if you have a quarterback already, if you have a good quarterback on a rookie contract, you can trade him. Look, Mitch Trubisky, if the Bills had him under contract, they could have traded Mitch Trubisky for something like reasonable, So just getting quarterbacks on your roster, it's a no-brainer. Last thing, real quick, I want to hit on here was this Dearness Johnson thing. And the only reason it raised my mind is because I like Dearness Johnson. Maybe I'm like biased towards the AAF, but I actually think he can play. But the Browns have Nick Chubb. The Browns have Kareem Hunt. And then, I get the $2.43 million on an RFA deal is not a ton for Dearness Johnson because the NFL salary cap is $202 million. But in the context of a running back market, $2.4 million for a running back now is kind of a big deal. It's significant. So what do you think about Dearness? Does this mean Kareem Hunt is gone, or what do you think the Browns are thinking here with Dearness?
You remember Dearness start? I think it was on a Thursday night game. It was definitely an island game. Yeah, Thursday nighter. That was one of the best running back performances of the entire season, and I'm not even exaggerating. I think that even PFF would back that up, in terms of his broken tackle rate and all that. He was unbelievable in that game. And I'm with you. The dude can play. I remember, us talking about him. Or analyze and breaking down, because I would do matchups columns for some of the AAF weeks, and looking at Dearness Johnson's background, the dude ran like a 4.8 240, and I was like, oh, this slug, this dude is not going to be, this dude is going to be terrible. He was awesome in the AAF, he was awesome in the NFL, and so it is in the context of the running back market a lot, but it's just not very much money. And he was undrafted, so you have to give him they give him a second round tender, right?
Yep. 2.43. Yep.
Yeah. So it doesn't make any sense to give former undrafted free agents original pick tenders, because then they can be plucked away by other teams with an offer sheet, like a relatively cheap offer sheet. So you have to give them the second round tender. They did. It might mean that Kareem Hunt is not coming back. It might, but I think they probably just were like, yo, we love this player, and he's like, he's like, a dude that like his teammates love him and all that. So it was like, we're going to bring back, he's a good player. We can afford to pay him $2.4 million. Doesn't matter that, that's a lot for a running back.
Yeah. And again, NFL salary cap, $202 million this year. Absolutely massive. So a very relatively low spend on Dearness Johnson. But yeah, 3 really good backs, obviously, in Cleveland now. Okay. We've spent time on Dearness Johnson. You know that's when it's time for the end of the show. Appreciate you all being here for this special Friday edition of the show. Next week is the week, man. I mean, next week is free agency. I feel like a lot of the big dominoes have dropped already, but I'm sure there will be way tons more things to talk about. I'll actually be visiting my parents in Florida, but I'm going to take some time away for sure because we're going to have to do a podcast on free agency. We will talk to you then. If you are listening on iTunes or on YouTube, be sure you hit the subscribe button. It is indeed free. We really would appreciate it. For Evan, for producer Luke, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.